Welcome to the Food Solution Podcast, a podcast to show you how to heal yourself and the planet from your kitchen table. We have vastly underestimated the healing potential of the earth and our bodies. Tune in and become inspired and healthy with me, Dr. Gundi Rhoades, veterinarian, organic farmer, and mother. Hello there, another podcast from me, Dr. Gundi Rhoades, about everything to do with nature and health. For the Body and Soil podcast, and hello to everybody worldwide, but especially in Australia. And I hope again to inspire you to change your health and take the planet with you. Today we will talk about the soil, and I don't have a guest today because I have so much to say. You know, when I've got all of my things out in the future, then the things that I want to teach you and show you, then I will get lots and lots of visitors, and we will go broader and wider. But I am very passionate about getting the basics for everybody understandable first. So today it is about soil. Now, if you're not a farmer or a gardener, you might wonder why soil would be at all important for you. So why is it so important? What does it have to do with your own health? Soil is obviously the structure where our food is grown in. And you could argue, yes, but I'm a meat eater, so I will eat the meat, that's not grown in soil. But the cattle or the pigs or the chickens or the sheep ultimately have eaten also plants, that were grown on soil. So everything comes from there. And in my book, which is called The Food Solution, I show it to you here. By me, Dr. Gundi Rhoades, I've got a whole chapter on soil and why it is so important. So please buy, on Amazon and read that. So soil is the structure that we need to grow food in. And most of us know soil, even if you live in cities. You will have seen soil. And if you haven't, then it's a good description of how much our lives, are unnatural nowadays, so that there's people, a lot of people in cities that have got no connection to the soil. So in a nutshell, all of your body building blocks have to come from soil. And then once you eat things that are grown on soil, of course you can, your body is transforming them, like you're digesting them in your stomach and in your gut, and you chew them and then you absorb them, and then they go into your liver, and in your liver you will model your own body out of it. So all of my body, head to toe, has originated from the food that first my mother has eaten and that I am eating now, and all that food has to come from soil. And we will go, probably after this 40 minutes or so that I'm talking, you will understand why you will not be able to get nutrients from hydroponic lettuces or from hydroponic tomatoes, or from any factory for that matter. So soil. What is soil? Soil is stuff, like earth, sand, loam. There's different types of soil with different nutrients in it. Like on my farm, I had partially basalt, which is a dark soil that was high in magnesium, and then I had granite, which was lighter soil that was lower in most minerals. So the richness of the soil can really vary, and the richer the soil, the richer the food that it will grow. So you've got the structural bits, sand, loam, organic matter to different degrees. And I will explain later what organic matter is and why it matters so much. The best soils have got a high amount of humus, which is organic matter. Organic matter is carbon structures that have been growing as plants, and then they get digested by, you know, the earthworms and the like little micro critters and the bacteria, and are formed into a gelatinous black structure that is called humus. And humus is full of carbon, full of bacteria, full of fungi, full of protozoa, microorganisms that live in it. And it's got fiber through it, you know, digested plant material. So it acts like a sponge. So when it's raining, sorry, I'm wobbling the screen. When it's raining, it can absorb water very, very quickly and very efficiently. So if a farmer wants to drought-proof their farm a little bit more, then growing humus is a really good way of doing this. So, so the soil contains air, roots, minerals to varying degrees, and then the microbes. And they are bacteria, fungi, protozoa. So there's about 80,000 different microbes that live in the soil. Very comparable to our gut microbiome, which we talked about before. And there's about 30 million bacteria in 1 gram of soil, which is amazing. So if you would take a little bit and put it under the microscope, you would have 30 million of 80,000 different species in 1 gram of bacteria. So most of them are not even discovered yet. Then you've got fungi, you know, and fungi can have long myceliums, you know, long threads, so to speak, you know, that can connect plants with each other. You can see them as sometimes as little white streaks, you know, in the soil, and they can connect trees to each other, you know, and all the plants are connected through them. So it's like an information highway. And then you've got protozoa, which are a little bit bigger, but still single cellular organisms, you know, that sometimes even have the ability to move slightly. Then, of course, you have got earthworms, and every gardener knows how much earthworms are loved because they eat detritus, they eat dead plant material, munch it up, have it in their gut. And in their gut again, you know, you've got millions and millions of bacteria and protozoa living, and then they poop this high bacterial content worm poo out the other end, you know, which is so increasing the fertility of the soil so much. So the roots from the plants, you know, that grow through the soil and let water in and let air in, and the plants, of course, being above ground and being subject to sunlight, make photosynthesis, make sugars, and they pump that into the soil. There is about 2 tons worth or more of micro life in a very small area, you know, like about an acre of soil. And they are hungry, they want to eat, you know, so they need plant material, but the direct food that they're getting is actually through the roots of the plants. And they are pumping sugars that are produced by photosynthesis right in. Now, you might wonder, what does that have to do with you? Who cares? You know, who would ever care about the microbes in the soil? So you might have heard that microbes in your gut, the microbiome that we have only discovered lately, is so majorly important. You know, in the gut, it creates, it digests food, it makes tryptophan into serotonin. You know, 80% of your serotonin, which is your happy hormone, is made in the gut by the bacteria. They transform nutrients into each other. They make essential fatty acids. They nourish the gut wall. They produce B vitamins. They make melatonin. You know, they nourish our brain. They color our world. You know, it is so important, and we are only just finding out how important that is. So in the soil, we are just, again, you know, just finding out how important that is. Now, I've got in my book an old saying that I found, you know, like 1500 BC or something very, very old, you know, where an old wise person said, when the soil is dead, we will be dead. And we did not really understand that until recently. I think a lot of people understood that, you know, during the centuries, but we, in our intellectual scientific minds, we didn't. You know, gardeners would have, they would have made compost. The old-fashioned farmers would have. But then the new farmers, modern technology farmers, did not really know, I think, you know, what it means to have fertile soil. So why fertile? You know, what's the difference between a dead paddock out there, you know, a building block, sand, and, you know, rich soil where actually nutritious food can grow? So one thing is the amount of organic content, and that is, as I said before, digested plant material, creating humus. And it is the microlife in it, in the soil: bacteria, protozoa, fungi, earthworms. So why are they so important, and what do they do? So let's start with, minerals. Of course, minerals are in the soil as well. Minerals like magnesium, zinc, manganese, molybdenum, iron, sulfur, nitrogen is not a mineral, you know, but nevertheless, cobalt, magnesium, selenium, zinc, have I had that already? You know, like all of those minerals are copper, are in the ground, hopefully, if they're there. You know, you've got different soils, and some are more or less deficient of different things, you know, which is why when I had my farm and I did soil tests, you know, I would have an analysis done. So the minerals are in the ground. Phosphorus, I forgot that. Potassium, I forgot that. Chlorine, I forgot that. You know, so all of these substances are in the soil to varying degrees. Now, all of these minerals are building blocks of life. You know, like in my old biochemistry book that I've got here, and people that watch me on YouTube can see it, you know, it's very old, and I have, my goodness, you know, I've learned from this for years. You can look up the different minerals and what they are there for. Like magnesium is in 650 enzymes, different enzymes in our bodies. You know, enzymes are little, how do you describe an enzyme? Enzymes do things, you know, they facilitate change in our bodies on a biochemical level. So they facilitate, let's say, the citrate cycle, you know, or making new proteins out of your food, or building up your own fat, or building up hormones. You know, all of those things need enzymes and building blocks, you know, and that's where the minerals are part of, and you need them to varying degrees. So magnesium, let's take magnesium. You know, if magnesium is in the soil, and it is part of the chlorophyll of the plant has to be, the magnesium in the chlorophyll is like the hemoglobin and the iron. The iron and the hemoglobin is equivalent to the magnesium in the chlorophyll. So it's in the center. And without iron in your blood, you will be anemic. And without magnesium, the chlorophyll can't work. So if you've got magnesium in the soil, it needs to be soluble enough so that the plant can take it up and then build it into its chlorophyll and into other things, you know, but let's just take chlorophyll to then be able to perform photosynthesis, which makes the plant grow. So what do the bacteria have to do with it? The bacteria in the soil and the fungi, they actually make the magnesium available. So they make so much acid around themselves that they make chemically the magnesium and other minerals, you know, available to be taken up by the plant. And then the plant can thrive. And then when you eat that plant, you can thrive. So let's stick with magnesium. If you have magnesium, one of the functions of magnesium that everybody pretty much knows is to relax your muscles. So if you have got not enough magnesium, then your muscles will cramp. Every sports person will know that, and you will try to get magnesium into you. Now, how do you do that? I do Epsom salt baths because a lot of the magnesium tablets you take or magnesium powder cannot actually be absorbed easily. Your skin is better at absorbing magnesium than is your gut. So if you, on the other hand, eat magnesium in a plant, then it is chelated in the right manner and your body can take it in quite easily. So the good green smoothie, you know, green spinach, anything with dark green, photosynthesizing, you know, like color will have a lot of magnesium in it. What else does magnesium do? Magnesium relaxes your skeletal muscle, which you get a quadriceps spasm in the middle of the night, you know, like you will know that you need more magnesium. But it also relaxes smooth muscle. So where do you have smooth muscle? In your organs. So in your bladder, for example, to relax the bladder. You have got it. So bedwetting, I just mentioned bedwetting here. You know, it might even have something to do with that. Around your blood vessels. So if you have enough magnesium, your blood vessel walls in your arteries can relax, and therefore your blood has more space. So therefore the blood pressure drops. A lot of people do get a lot of people that have a certain age get high blood pressure, and then they will be prescribed blood pressure lowering medication. What about, you know, if you just don't have enough magnesium in your system to actually relax your blood vessels so much that your blood pressure will drop automatically? So we'll come back to that, where that magnesium might be and why you don't get it. Uterus cramps are another one for low magnesium. A lot of young women in particular, they have got uterus cramps when they get their period, you know, so rather than, again, popping a tablet, you should probably try just to have more magnesium in your diet, and that might actually work. Migraines, you know, if your blood vessels in your brain, in your head just contract, you know, like, again, you know, try magnesium. On a mental note, mentally, magnesium, lack of magnesium can make you anxious, nervous, irritable, lack of concentration and brain fog, amongst a few others, you know. So I wonder how many kids at school actually do get enough magnesium. And this is just one of many minerals, you know, if they get enough magnesium from their diet. As we all know, kids are not particularly good in eating their green leafy vegetables, you know, but what I will tell you in a minute is it also depends really, you know, how much magnesium is in food, how it was grown. So the bacteria make all of these minerals available if they are there, if the ground is fertile. What else do they do? The bacteria actually produce nutrients. when I started to go down rabbit holes and have a look what they're actually producing, it is quite extraordinary what I found. A lot of our essential amino acids come from there. Amino acids are building blocks of proteins. And if I go into my old biochemical book, I'm just showing for the people that are just on a podcast, you know, there is about 20 of them, you know, and you can see that they are just 2, 3, it starts with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever carbons, and then a little bit of oxygen, hydrogen, and then the odd nitrogen in there. So those, we have 20, and they are put into chains in varying composition, and that depends on what your DNA is actually telling it. So if you want to make muscle tissue, then you have got a certain lots of amino acids. They're getting put into chains, and then they crumble up three-dimensionally, and then you have a protein. So you need every ingredient for that. You need all 20. Now, 12 of them we can actually make. Our bodies make themselves. They're the non-essential amino acids. But 8 are essential, and we have to take them up with food. And they are, I'll read them out, valine, leucin, isoleucin, phenylalanine, tryptophan, methionine, threonine, and lysine. So they are essential building blocks that you have to take up with your food. And who makes them is actually the bacteria in the soil again. So that was quite a revelation. When I looked at my old biochemistry book, I couldn't really find where they are made. You know, some are made in plants, but some of the really, really rare ones that we absolutely need, like tryptophan, are just made in the soil by those bacteria. Now, the bacteria also make alkaloids. So many substances, you know, whose name you will always forget, you know, but they are then what really truly makes food into medicine. Anti-cancer, anti-heart arrhythmia, anti-high blood sugar, anti-parasite, you know, you name it, you know, they make it. So that is how life works, you know, it's all made for us. And then, you know, we can eat those ingredients and can build our own body out of it. Now, another thing that bacteria in the ground make is they take up the nitrogen. I just mentioned that those amino acids are carbon chains, so is sugar and so is fat, but they have got nitrogen in it. So commercial farmers will put nitrogen fertilizer on the paddocks. And that system was only developed in the 1940s by a couple of guys called Haber and Bosch. And they developed how we can split the nitrogen up. So nitrogen, this is a bit scientific, sorry, you know, but the nitrogen in the air, 70% of our air is nitrogen. And the nitrogen is from one N, it's an N2, you know, so 2 nitrogens connected, coupled to each other, and really strongly, you know, like with anybody that's done chemistry, with a triple binding. So there is 3 lots of electrons that they share, which is like nearly unsplittable. So how does that nitrogen from the air get into the amino acids in the soil, so then that we can then build proteins out of it, because no nitrogen, no protein. So Haber and Bosch, these 2 German guys, you know, they have developed like a lightning strike in a jar or in a laboratory, in a factory, and they can split it up with a lightning strike. Artificially, it's really highly energy inefficient, but they've managed, and now we have got nitrogen fertilizer that we can put out. And it costs money, and it takes energy to do so. But the nitrogen bacteria, you know, in the ground, and most of you will know that legumes have got those nitrogen, you know, bacteria in it, and they are strong enough that they can take that N, triple binding N, and split it up and then put it into protein structures. So, and that is then your protein food. However, what modern farming has done, it has put on the two main things that it's done is put on nitrogen and phosphorus, potassium, NPK fertilizer. And on the other hand, it put up herbicides to kill, insecticides, pesticides, and fungicides. So NPK fertilizer, nearly every farmer uses it. What does it do? It actually, the nitrogen in that, as urea or in other forms, actually kills a lot of the microbes that are in the ground. So if those farmers have had nitrogen fertilizer and killed their bacteria, which could have made the nitrogen available, then they got themselves into a pickle because now they have to put more and more on. What does it mean when the bacteria are dead? And that's what a lot of farming has not thought about. Because what happens when the bacteria are dead and the fungi are dead in the soil? They will not make the minerals available for the plant and therefore for your body. They will not make those nutrients anymore for the plant and for your body or for the animals that eat them. And they will less split up the nitrogen to make it be able to be built into protein structures. What do the herbicides do? Glyphosate. Glyphosate is Roundup, and it's the mostly used chemical on the planet. 7 billion or 8 billion tons. It's everywhere nowadays, and nearly every commercial farm uses it to, when you drive around, when I go from here in Rhoades to Glen Innes, or if you go west into the wheat belt and cotton belt, you will see a lot of fields that are sprayed out and they're brown. And you can see either stubble and dead brown weeds, or you can just see soil because they have deteriorated already. So what happened there is the herbicide, the Roundup, and there's others, there's 2,4-D, which is nasty, Agent Orange, or part of Agent Orange. There is Paraquat, and there are so many others, that are available, and they are called herbicides, so they spray out the weeds or the grasses or whatever is growing there. And most people that are sort of home gardeners, they might spray it around their garden paths or their house, and you can see that it dies. But what they don't know is that it kills the microbes and the fungi and the algae as well. So because Roundup stops the pathway that is called shikimate pathway, and the shikimate pathway, when the bacteria need that for life, and the fungi. So if you stop that pathway, they will die and the plant will die. But that pathway in particular makes the essential amino acids for us. That is exactly the pathway, the shikimate pathway. So when you kill the bacteria in the ground, you kill everything that makes our nutrients for us. So no bacteria in the soil, no B vitamins, no B vitamins for us, no amino acid, essential amino acids, tryptophan is the one that I'm most researched because it's so important. No tryptophan. Therefore, you don't eat tryptophan with your food. You can't make it yourself. If it's not in your gut, it will not be in your brain to make serotonin. It will not make melatonin to make you sleep, and it will not make IPA to protect you from Alzheimer's. So, and it is a building block for all these other protein structures, so this is where Bosch says, with killing the soil, we literally kill the building blocks of our bodies. You just don't have them anymore. And most farmers do not realize this, and certainly don't have the intent to kill everything that's there, but that's what's happening. And then the implications of that you see everywhere. And this is where the soil is connected to you, and this is where farming is connected to you. So if the bacteria and the fungi make your nutrients, and so many that we don't even know yet, like I'm sure I know the tip of the iceberg, and all the others I don't know, because it's always functioned, through the billions of years of evolution, it has functioned until recently, when we thought we could just kill the soil. And we only wanted to kill the plants on top, but sadly, it kills the microbes in it. So with it, the minerals are not absorbed anymore, the nutrients are not made anymore, the nitrogen system is not working, and the soils are dead. And when you drive around here after a rain event, we just had, lots of rain again. If you're in a paddock where you have got grasses and organic matter, like and humus, so it's spongy, the water will just soak in, life will start again, and it will be there for the next week or 2 or 3 when it doesn't rain. When you look at a paddock that is sprayed out, the soils are what we call hard pan, so they're hard, they're nearly water repellent. The water after rain will sit on top, it will not even go in, and then it'll run off. And you go into town and you look at the river, and the river is brown, and there goes everybody's topsoil. Yeah, so the implications of chemical agriculture are humongous, for the ecosystems, because of course with this topsoil that goes down into the river, also go the herbicides and the insecticides. And when you look on their data sheet, they all state, toxic to aquatic life. So then the rivers go down into the ocean, and we have got plenty of dead zones on the planet, the Gulf, around the Gulf of Mexico, where the big Mississippi River comes out, there is hundreds of kilometers of dead ocean, where these pesticides have killed the ocean. So this is where I say, be aware of what you're eating, and the implications that this has, because yes, it does affect your body more than you have ever known, more than I have ever known, but it also, more than anything else, destroys all our natural world around us, like toxic to aquatic life, so down the river it goes, down into the ocean it goes. Algae. I learned the other day, that 80% of our oxygen comes from algae in the ocean. So if a herbicide like Roundup or 2,4-D goes down into the ocean and kills the algae and the phytoplankton, the food resources for the fish are gone. But who's going to make the 80% of oxygen? And who's going to make the oxygen anyway if we have deforested and if we sprayed out all the green bits here? You go through from here, let's say to Glen Innes, 60 kilometers, there'll be 40 kilometers. And this is still cattle country, yeah? So even in cattle country, for cattle, for cows, a lot of farmers in winter spray out whole paddocks, kill it dead, so that paddock, let's say there's about 50% between here and Glen Innes, where it's sprayed out. So that 50% of landscape does not absorb, because it doesn't have any green, it does not absorb carbon dioxide and makes it into carbon dioxide being the greenhouse gas culprit number one. It does not absorb it, and it does not, those green plants that are missing are not making sugars for the microbes. So if the microbes weren't killed before, they're now starving to death, yeah? So it's all implicated in that. But for you as a listener, the human health factor is you are getting devoid of nutrients. So that is our episode about the soil and the importance of it. So take-home factors are, like soil is needed to make nutrients for us. The bacteria in the soil make it fertile. Fertile means, it encourages life. It makes the plants strong, nutrient-rich. For the plant, being nutrient-rich means that they are resistant to disease, that they can fight off bacteria and pests. For that, an interesting little snippet. I read somewhere that insects don't have a liver, which I had to then Google, and see, is this true? And yes, it is true. Insects don't have a liver, which me as a veterinarian, we obviously didn't learn enough about insects. But if insects don't have a liver, they cannot metabolize stuff, like transform things, like you eat a carrot and you make your body out of it. You eat a steak and you make your own muscle tissue out of it. Every bodybuilder will know that. As an insect, if you don't have a liver, where this all happens, you can't make that. So your even more reliant on direct nutrients, and they love sugar, you know, so the higher in protein, which they can't really digest, the higher in protein a plant is, the less susceptible it is to insect pests. Yeah, and organic farmers report that if they've got a paddock and next door is a conventional farmer with weakened plants, that the grasshoppers or whatever pest comes along will fly over their paddock and will not land and go to the chemical farm. Then what does the farmer do? Insecticides, you know, insect killing chemicals, which of course they are poisonous. Most of them are nerve gases like E605 and, you know, which was in the war, and yeah, phosphates, they are poisons, nerve gases as such. So they are then sprayed, and then the plant becomes weaker. And of course, those chemicals don't kill the pests only, but they kill the bees, which are our pollinators. And scientists think that if we don't have the bees anymore, then we will starve to death, because we need pollinators, you know, to do that for us. Another thing that I forgot to mention, what humus does, apart from holding water and holding, you know, the building blocks of life, one building block of life is fulvic acid, and that is only made in humus. And if we don't have humus, our food will be deficient. And fulvic acid, that's another aha moment that I had. Fulvic acid is like a transport truck. So it takes nutrients into cells. So if you don't have it, you can eat a lot of nutrients, and you can even absorb them in your bloodstream, but you cannot get them into your cells. So it's a vital ingredient, and it's only coming from humus, and humus is living. And if you kill it with chemicals, then you will be missing that too. And the implications for health are so wide, you know, like from cancer to autism. Autism is really linked, for example, to manganese, not magnesium, Mn, not Mg, Mn, manganese. You know, when it is not made available by the bacteria in the soil because they're dead, then manganese deficiency makes such a high chance of autism. You know, Samsel and Senef, you know, two researchers, you know, wrote a lot of papers about that. You know, you can look that up if you want to. So the implications of this are huge. Last but not least, biomass in the soil is carbon, you know, and climate change has got one massive problem, and that is carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increases the atmospheric mantle, you know, and creates more warmth on our planet, you know, inducing global warming, amongst other things, you know, water vapor, nitrous oxide as well, but let's say CO2. And CO2 should live in plants, which we kill by chemicals, which we deforest by cutting down trees, which we kill by killing the oceans, by getting, you know, deadening the phytoplankton. And soil can store more carbon safely than air and plants combined. Yeah. So if we kill the soil, then we don't have a ground cover making it shady and cool, then the amount of carbon dioxide emissions are humongous, you know, and that is the biggest, it's much more a problem than the cattle, you know, in carbon dioxide emissions from the soil. And the nitrogen fertilizer that I mentioned before, when it is put on, only about 40% of it is used up, and the rest gets evaporated as NO, nitrous oxide, you know, into the air. It's a greenhouse gas about 300 times as strong as CO2, or it goes down into the river as cancerogenic nitrates. So the way we farm has got so much to answer for. Climate change, water cycles, insect death, extinction of species, and human health. That it's just so incredible, you know, like that's why my podcast and my book, you know, The Food Solution, the food that you are eating, choose the right food, because it can really truly be the solution to your own health problems and the health of the planet. So that was about the soil and the soil microbiome, which I'm sure in due term we will find out that the soil microbiome and our gut microbiome are very similar, because we come from the same earth. That was another podcast of Body and Soil by Gundi, Rhoades, veterinarian in Varel. And you can contact me, you can talk to me, you can buy my book. It's on Amazon. It's called The Food Solution by Dr. Gundula Rhoades. And it takes all of us to save the planet. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.